Welcome back to the Urban Monk, Dr. Pedram Shojai. I am with Jeff Spencer today. He is a doctor, he is a wizard, he's a stud. Jeff has been the corner man for a lot of the kind of big household name athletes that you would know. He worked with Lance Armstrong for a while. He worked with a lot of he's the secret to the success of a lot of people. And he's just a great down-to-earth dude. And so we really get into what success is from someone who's worked with the highest, most elite level athletes and corporate executives and people that are really moving things in our world, looking at what those practices look like, why willpower isn't enough, and really what kind of framework we need so that we can be effective in life. So great stuff. Tune in, Dr. Jeff Spencer. Let me know what you think. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome to the Urban Monk. I'm Dr. Pedram Shojai, and I have a special guest with me today. I'm excited to introduce Dr. Jeff Spencer, who has worked with all the top athletes that I'd want to hang out with. And he's like the most humble guy about it because he's the guy in the corner who's always supported these athletic greats over these years. And we've been having a very interesting dialogue about how we can take that championship mindset and apply it to our everyday lives, because it seems so out of reach to do what the Olympians do. But what are the Olympians doing right, and how do we bring that into our lives? Jeff, great to see you.
Well, it's such a pleasure. Thank you very much, Pedram.
Thanks for being here.
That's my pleasure.
Yeah, so give us a little background just on how you got into all this.
The Cliff Notes. Well, when I was 7 years old, I was just a really industrious kid. I'd go outside every morning and hit my little baseball up and down the street by myself. But I had Olympics on the brain. I thought the coolest thing ever would be to be an Olympian that walked into the stadium on the opening day ceremonies and turned that right corner and the crowd went crazy. But I noticed something very interesting, is that the biggest and the baddest Olympians on paper, they didn't win. And the ones that seemed like they shouldn't on paper did. So I knew that they knew something about life that the others didn't that made the difference. And I wanted to know what that was so that I could fulfill my ambitions to become an Olympian. And then I competed in my first National Cycling Championship when I was 13. And the next year, my parents got divorced tragically, and it was a very difficult time for me. My dad was an artistic genius, design genius. It was the last time I saw him, and I found out 30 years later that he died homeless on the streets of New York City.
Wow.
But this was another piece to the puzzle about how to become the best that you can be and stay there. And so it was a myth exploded, and the myth was will and talent are enough. And if you wasn't bad enough, it's going to happen. Just dream big and try hard. And that wasn't the case, because my dad had will and talent, he had amazing technique, and he had technology to die for, but yet it didn't save him. So a lesson learned there that I was still interested in the why behind that. Why are there people that can and do, and why are there people that can and don't? And so the silver lining to that very difficult period were the mentors that came into my life. And they were non-denominational. They came from sport, they came from business, they came from stage. And they shared with me all their secrets on how they became iconic. But I saw the pattern again. They didn't graduate from the most prestigious institutions. They didn't have the best pedigrees, but yet they were always the first in line to grab the brass ring when it showed up. While the other people were scratching their heads, is that why is it always these guys that show up and I'm not even ready yet? So I was curious about that, and I took what they had shared with me and I applied it to my own life, and I did make an Olympic team. I did march into the stadium, but yes, the crowd did go crazy when we made that right turn onto the track itself. I was a cyclist in the 1972 Munich Olympics, and I was between my sophomore and junior year at the University of Southern California that I was attending as a scholarship student, even though we were on welfare after my dad left and I never saw him again. My mentors made it possible for me through my intellect and everything that they taught me to go to USC. And so I knew what it took to get to the top and stay there, because I'd been there as an Olympian. And having a bachelor's and a master's degree in sports science, I knew what it took to craft a body that's capable of the push when you need to push, and also had sustainability. So whether you're in business, sport, stage, or life, if you don't have the health and the fitness to be able to push when you need to push, or have staying power to evolve into the best that you can be, well, then don't plan on a very good career. And so a lot of people were very interested in me that wanted to become their own champions. So people came to me from sport, they came to me from business, they came to me from stage, they came to me from life, and wanted me to construct programs for them and their teams and their businesses on how they could become at the championship level, which I did. Then I got asked a lot of questions about, well, what do I do if I get hurt? How do I get over being hurt fast and quickly, and how do I limit and prevent injuries? And I also got asked, well, how do I get and stay well? Because if I get sick, then that means short career, which means no legacy, no prosperity, no high quality life. I decided to go back to college. So I went back and got my chiropractic degree. I was 2004 Sports Chiropractor of the Year. So I had these 3 pillars. Experientially, I knew what it took to get to the top. And I can only say that unless you've been there, you can't study greatness and teach it or share it. It's not possible. You have to have lived it so that every DNA molecule is calibrated towards it, which I had. I knew the body, and I also knew health and fitness. So I became essentially a one-stop Jiffy Lube shopping center to be able to craft a structure and a model where you could predictably get to the top of your game and stay there. And that's where I found my way into the lives of just some of the most amazing people and achievers of our day. So that was the path from there to now.
So did you work with a particular type of athlete? Did you just cross over into all kinds of different arenas? I mean, I know like cycling was where you came from, but basketball, football, baseball, like did it matter?
Yeah. It didn't matter, and it's like sports, business, stage, life. It's all the same thing. Those are like technical things, but about the mindset and the problem-solving capacity that we have is the thing that really makes the difference. So it didn't matter to me, a businessman that wanted to make millions, sure, I can help you do that. An athlete that wants to win gold medals, I can help you do that. If you have somebody that's a thought leader that wants to move to the next level, sure, I can help you on that as well. It's a universal concept, the details of which are more detail-oriented rather than how the person shows up and how they make decisions.
Interesting. You mentioned pushing this boulder up the hill, and that seems to me to be kind of the MO of American business, Western business, is just, you can sleep when you're dead. If you're tired, drink coffee and just push, or else you've lost your productive capacity and then you're useless to our culture. And we know this, from a lot of studies that have come out and are still coming out with athletes and all this in terms of looking at recovery cycles, looking at rest cycles, and I'm assuming that's part of your gestalt here.
Well, that's 100% of it, because if you can push but you don't recover, then plan on getting sick or injured or making an amateurish mental mistake that could cost you a lifetime of preparation and achievement. So what I do in my programs and what I do with all the people that I work with, I always make sure that we balance the effort with the recovery. And if you make a choice today that helps you today but hurts you tomorrow, then it's a bad choice.
Psychologically, recovery is a place that I almost feel people need to have permission to go to, because it's just, you're so lazy, your work ethic sucks. What are you doing? Are you sitting around? Great, then come over here and help me with this. And so how do you get people transitioned into kind of an allowed recovery that doesn't break their persona, or do you need to break their persona and be like, you're a person that relaxes, get used to it?
Well, I think we need to look at the nature of how we think, and we have a human nature that believes a certain set of rules that will allow us to get to where we want to go. And then we have the champion's nature. We have 2 different natures. The human nature believes that dream as big as possible, work really hard, and you'll close the gap to get to where you want to go. And that's not true. Most people don't get to where they want to go. It's not because they don't have talent or will. They don't have a model, they don't have a team, and they don't have the infrastructure and the advisors to help them get there, which is the learned process. And so the champions clearly understand that without rest, then the possibility of evolving into the best that you can be is virtually impossible. And once you get to the top, it's impossible to stay there unless you recover, because the cost of lack of recovery generally falls into 2 categories. It falls into a catastrophic relationship failure at some point with yourself and yourself with other people. And it leads to an untimely illness that can take people out of the game just at a point where they're ready to create the achievement of their dreams.
Interesting. And so you're so close, yet you just got to take your foot off the gas at that right moment.
It's mandatory. There's no options there. But the human nature can't believe that, because the human nature thinks that if I pause, then I'm not worthy of success. Or if I pause, the universe is going to take away the opportunity and never give it back to me because it construes me as a slacker. We also believe that if we pause, somebody else is going to get the advantage and take it away from us. We also believe that if we pause, we're never going to get there because we'll lose capacity, we'll lose steam and momentum. And all of those are mind fabrications of our fear-based survival instinct that every one of us has. And as long as we're ruled by that conversation, then you're not going to be able to move forward. So again, it takes a champion's mindset to apply what the champions have already told us has to happen to get to where you want to go. But it's contrarian to human nature. So that's really the battle, and that's the grind.
Yeah, so you've worked with some of the most elite champions on our planet. I mean, kind of household name people.
Yes.
And so, the proof's in the pudding. These guys went there, they did it, they held the trophies or the gold and all this kind of stuff. So, we're not talking about speculation here. I mean,
no,
this
100%.
This is years and years of observation and testing.
That's right. It's actually historically based. And if you see something repeat itself in history, then it's right and it's true, because history doesn't lie.
So what are some of the key pieces to this new framework that if I'm listening to this right now and say, I'm a tax guy and I try to go to the gym, but my back hurts and, I'm stressed out and, just a normal life, and I'm trying to get through it. I'm trying to do the right thing. I try not to eat the bread, right? It's like, it's like we have all these things that are
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, exactly. So how can we start thinking about a better way of looking at our performance?
Well, I think the first thing is to look at some of the myths. There's the myth that I'm not capable, or only famous people leave legacies, and that's not true. We all leave a legacy. I've never met a champion that got there without doing the work. There are no exemptions. Everybody's got to run through a process. And also the perfection myth. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be 90% good enough across the board in key things to be able to gain the acceleration to get to where you want to go. So if we kind of look at those as broad brushstroke playing field rules, then it becomes achievable in our own mind. The perfection myth has ruined more people than I can even begin to describe. People that chase perfection are people that are constantly chasing the detail that doesn't matter. It's about getting it 90% right. And so there are probably key 3 areas that I think that are essential. Number 1 is that you have to have a blueprint or a structure that has proven itself to take you progressively from where you are to where you want to go, that makes sense, and it's the right size steps done at the right time. It's looked at also in terms of a chronology with certain benchmarks that have to be hit at a certain time. And whether you're someone that wants to make and bake the best cookie in Los Angeles or you want to win a gold medal, it's all the same. It isn't restricted by capacity or talent or will. The second thing is to make sure that we have really good advisors. We need coaches to help us with the specialty items that we need to apply to advance our cause to our goal completion. We also need mentors that can kind of hold our hand down the path to the promised land. But then we also need the rarest of all species, which is the corner man. He's kind of the older guy, kind of like Rocky had Mickey. He's the older guy that understands life, that can kind of tell you in real time, turn right, turn left to carry momentum forward. And then we also need a team, because no one can win and prosper and have a life of contribution and success without having a team to do the things that we can't do for ourselves.
It seems like some of those are linked, because if I'm a perfectionist, then I don't need a team, because I do everything the best, and I'm right, and
well,
these employees.
It's only history has never proven that, but okay, think it.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. So
It's
you're stuck in that weird eddy of psychological stagnation.
It's the human mindset.
Yeah, and then you can't employ a team, you can't work with a team, you can't enlist
right.
people to help you,
Right.
and then you get stuck there.
Right,
Yeah.
which is predictable, by the way. It's like success is predictable and also failure is preventable, because we have all these myths that run in our head. Try harder, want it bad enough, you're going to succeed. I mean, that's like classic. I can do it by myself, I don't need help. Or if I need help, it means I'm weak, I should know more. I mean, I need to be perfect. Where did all that come from? I mean, that's our fear-based survival, human nature mechanism that every one of us shares just because we're human, but it sounds so right, but it delivers so wrong.
Yeah, it really does. I've seen so many people suffer.
It's so
with
tragic.
that. So let's put the athlete aside for a second, and let's talk about this example that you brought up with, let's say, a girl in Los Angeles that wants to have a cookie company, right?
The best chocolate chip cookie in LA.
Best chocolate chip cookie in LA. Okay, so now let's go through some hypotheticals of what she's doing that's getting in her way, and what some small hinges to kind of swing those big doors would be. Just to ground this example and help us understand what a process like this would look like.
Sure. Well, there's basically kind of like 2 steps. You need to do the preparation side, and then you need to do the performance side, where you do the action steps that actually achieve the goal. And the champion's golden rule is you do the homework and the test is easy. So the preparation side of it's really important. So if you decide that I want to make the best cookie chocolate chip cookie in LA, the first thing would be to compare that against kind of like your legacy. What sort of a legacy do you want to leave? And does that goal support your legacy? And if so, then it's a goal worth pursuing. And then you have to look at it through the eyes of your life vision for the area of life that you're considering. And if it fits your vision, and it seems like once you achieve that goal that it enhances your life and allows you to make a contribution, then it's a goal worth pursuing. The next thing would be then to, number 3, look at your mindset. And I'm not talking about positive thinking, I'm not talking about mantras or visualization, I'm talking about an honest conversation. Do you really understand what it's going to take to get to where you want to go, and are you willing to do that? All things considered, yes or no. And if you are, then you got the right mindset. Then there's one more step to complete your preparation, and that's to do an inventory. Do you have the personal knowledge and resources to do what you want to do? And do you have the materials necessary? Do you have the time, the space, the personnel, the financing, and the equipment, yes or no? And so if you answered yes in all of those kind of 4 previous questions and categories, then you're prepared and you're ready to go.
And it's like reconciling dreams with reality.
It is.
You know, I love this because it's such a sobering voice to this industry, and I've been to a lot of events. I've been around the block as of you, and you know, like there's a lot of these kind of self-help guru types that get up on stage with their pom-poms and make you feel like all you got to do is
try harder, yeah,
try harder and do all that. Yeah, but then there's this huge vacuum, right? Which is, hey, look, I know you want to be the chocolate chip cookie person, but you got 3 kids at home, and you got, you know, a sick mom and X, Y, and Z, and you got to factor all that in.
You do.
And once you do that, then realistically, you have yourself a plan that could work.
You do, and it's all achievable. And the other thing I want to say about that is that, you know, the tragedy of the cheerleading sessions, they can't possibly deliver. And when they don't deliver, the person that bought into it thinks they're the problem.
Yeah.
And then they end up quitting forever, which to me is a trespass against the most sacred of all human traits, which is of trust. So again, there's nothing that can't be achieved if we first off, we go through the preparation vetting to make sure that we're qualified and prepared to be able to go boots on the ground, and then start the action steps that then are required to complete to be able to achieve the goal.
How much of this ostrich phenomenon do you see in people's lives? Like, it just seems like we're so focused on a better future that we'll never look at our now. And like, how hard is it to take someone and be like, no, let's look at your life and let's reconcile, you know, what's actually happening.
I think that it's very difficult in today's world because the mantra is want it bad enough and you can close the gap. That's the most prevalent myth that's out there. I think there are other myths about the universal fill in the gaps. It's a great idea, but I don't know any responsible person that's been a champion in business, sport, or on stage that ever does that. They do the vetting to make sure that what's there needs to be there to responsibly start. So again, we're kind of fighting ourselves against what media believes the process to be when they've actually never done it. And what that does, it sets us up for confusion. It also sets us up for unnecessary and preventable failure.
Yeah, it's interesting because these memes have permeated and infected the quote-unquote new age movement.
100%.
And you know, I personally like am very sensitive to it because people will be like, "Oh, you're one of those new age guys," and I'm like, my kung fu tradition is 6,000 years old.
It's not like it's exactly been invented.
This is not new age, right? Like this has been proven by history and time and things that we actually know work. Chinese medicine, same thing. You know, all these types of things. And new age is completely untethered. I talked to a guy who had this new age thing, and he was trying to get us to promote it. And I said, well, you know, it's a kind of a get rich thing. I said, so you came to this discovery and then you applied it to your life and then you proved it out and now you're sharing it with people? He said, no, I came up with this discovery in the shower and I started selling it as a technique to people, and that's how I made my money.
Yeah, which makes sense because it's promising something that can't be delivered on.
It's hot air. And it's everything is wrong with our world, right? It's like selling a bridge to nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. And again, what's tragic about that is the person that tries it and fails thinks they're the problem. So they give up and they just live in isolation and despair from that point on. It's tragic.
There's a famous case of one of these groups, and I won't mention it, that had it and then started selling franchises. And then when people realized that it wasn't happening, they had suicides. Yeah. I mean, it was like a real. Yeah, I mean, you tore apart the fabric of families, and people, killed themselves because of this. And so I love the fact that you're taking a stand for that, because there's just a lot of bullshit out there. And you know what? You don't need the bullshit to succeed. You need to model after people who have succeeded.
Well, the champions have already told us what needs to get done. And when I say champions, I'm not talking about gold medalists. I'm talking about business success. I'm talking about stage success. I'm talking about local athletic success, maybe just high school success, it doesn't matter. The path that history has revealed is very clear to us. And when I mentioned earlier that the preparation division, at least in my program, the Champions Blueprint, if you can't vet that successfully, then you're not ready to push the ignition button. And most people, they don't do that. Most people start and go boots on the ground, believing I'll just make it up as I go, and the process will be revealed to me, and if I want it bad enough and I have good intentions, then it's going to happen. And again, history doesn't support that. So especially in today's age where the cost of a good or bad decision has never been greater, that's where we need to slow down, we need to pause, we need to go through a responsible vetting. And the best thing about the preparation vetting and the 4 steps of the Champions Blueprint is that there's really no skin in the game. This is just us putting our heart against the reality of what we want to pursue. There's no financial outlay, there's nothing other than a responsible vetting.
And at that point, you know, so back to Cookie Mama here, is she decides, okay, look, I have the bandwidth.
Ready to go.
Kids are off to school, you know, whatever, we can do this. You know, I got 50 grand put aside, that's enough to get us going, whatever that is, right? Then, what about competitive analysis? Who else is doing cookies? What are they doing? And so is that when those steps come in, or is that part of the initial vetting?
That's actually would be an inventory. That's when you're actually, again, do you have the skills and do you have the knowledge to do this? That's when you vet against people that are doing what you've done to compare yourself against it, so that you can then acquire the inventory that you need to responsibly begin. And the inventory shouldn't be minimum. It should be what you think that you need that's been vetted by a third party, plus 30%, so that you're not guessing. Because there's always things that happen that you don't anticipate, and you need a shock absorber against that when it shows up. So that's where the 30% buffer comes into it.
Can you elaborate on the 30% buffer? Like, so what would she do in that 30% buffer? So she's like, okay, here's 5 other people that do cookies, and they're doing this, but my competitor, I'm going to go gluten-free and stevia, or whatever my specific angle is. But that is, are we talking about kind of a black swan scenario? Is like, what am I not looking at because I'm like,
well, that's where the third-party vetting comes into it. You know, in the inventory, you always have an independent third party, someone that you trust, and not a friend, hopefully, that comes in and they really look at this and they really say to you, look, based on what you want to do, these are the facts. I've looked at the inventory. I looked at what you wanted to do. I know this world. It looks like you've got everything that you need. And then they put their check mark on it. They've signed off on it. And so we never try to make our own decisions as relates to inventories, especially on a first pass through something. And then we want to make sure that we insulate it. We have enough extra just to be able to support the challenges that we may face that are unanticipated.
Sure. So someone from the outside comes in and pressure tests it for you.
Exactly right.
Because you're too enthusiastic about the idea.
Yeah. Well, that's where, as I said before, you know, we need a team, we need a path to get there, we need a blueprint, and we also need our advisors. And so again, we have those kind of checks and balances built into the system that keep us in sobriety, because our mind is at the top of what we're going to get once we've achieved the goal, but it doesn't really show the path to be able to get there. And that's where the challenge will be. So we need that support from the outside that can help frame things up realistically for us.
I want to spend another second on this, because I know that we have listeners, viewers right now who are feeling a little trepidation hearing this, because this sounds like work. Right?
Well, it is.
Well, exactly.
Responsible work.
Exactly. And so like the literal translation of Kung Fu is hard work. Right?
I didn't know that.
And so when someone asks you, how's your Kung Fu, kind of like when you say your Champion's Blueprint, it's like, you know, it's not that I won a gold medal, I'm a champion at my business, I'm a champion, whatever my degree is. And so your Kung Fu is your life's work. And
that's
you
beautiful.
get used to hard work, then life just gets easier and easier. And I think the kind of the pipe dream promise of a lot of this kind of new age self-help pom-pom stuff is oh, it's easy. You're going to be an internet millionaire. You're going to be this, this, my yoga system is going to change your life and all that. And so it just cuts all the work out of the equation. So how can we reconcile and just get a relationship with work that doesn't make us avert and like fear it, because that false promise just needs to be burst so people can get real and actually get real results.
Yeah, just a couple things there. It's like reality is the right word. We're not talking practicality. If we're getting practical, we're talking ourselves out of what we can actually do. So when we talk about reality, it really is the plan, and is the plan dissected appropriately enough? Because when we're talking about work and we have the dread meter in the red zone, that's only because we don't understand the process. So we're making it more difficult than perhaps it will really be because of our uncertainty about it. And that's why we also need our plan to be vetted by someone that's done something similar so they can show it to us. And so if we kind of back up and we look at the first step, when we're actually going boots on the ground, once we prepared ourselves and we've signed off on that, that's really called the climb. That's step number 5 in the performance division of the Champions Blueprint. And that's where we're developing the persistence and the perseverance to be able to get to achieve our goal. But the goal isn't to achieve the goal first off. The goal is always to have your breakthrough moment, your breakout. And meaning that when you start, you don't try to get to the goal too quickly, otherwise you'll talk yourself out of it. It's too big of a reach. But if you look at the breakout where you perform for the first time in line with your expectation when you achieve your goal, like the first cookie is made in the prototype, that's your breakout. Because it confirms to you, now you can actually do it. And all you need to do is duplicate and refine the process to be able to make it your new normal and gain some accelerations. Then your goal to have the best cookie and be able to reproduce it and have a viable business that's in expansion is possible. I think people really, they overreach because they get themselves all excited. They get everybody else all excited about, winning the gold medal or baking the best cookie. It's too big of a step right off. It's got to be a breakout where we're confirming to each other that, Pedram, we can actually do this.
Right. We've got a cookie.
We've got a cookie. See this cookie right here? Or see this right here?
Yep.
We did it once, we can do it again. So here,
Right.
This is our confirmation that we can actually do this. So when you kind of pull back and you make this your first real goal, rather than seeing these in every Whole Foods in the country, it becomes now attainable. And so the fear factor and the dread and the fear of work then kind of goes into the tank because it now has a context.
It's got a bucket so that you can be contained here and then move to the next plateau, move to the next plateau.
That's exactly right. And most people, again, get a little too ambitious because the mantra is, if you can visualize it, you can achieve it.
Right.
Which isn't true. I mean, a lot of times we set ourselves up for failure because it's too big of a leap too quick. So if we back up to the breakout, then it becomes doable. It becomes doable to us, it becomes doable to our team. When we achieve this for the first time, all of a sudden our team believes in us as a leader. We believe in ourselves as capable of doing it. That's like the Rosetta Stone. That's the mother lode that you want, at least first and foremost.
Let's talk about this in terms of kind of agility. There's huge movement in business right now about setting up agile frameworks and really testing assumptions, and then once you have something, then you build a business around it. So let's just say we have our first cookie, and most people, and this is a problem with self-worth and many other things, will make their first cookie and then just be like, here it is, here's our cookie, instead of saying, okay, Jeff, will you taste this cookie and give me honest feedback, right? Because it might suck. And you have to be okay and prepared for that and be like, okay, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? I'm not personally connected with this enough. Let's refine our cookie. And then once we've nailed it, then we got a cookie.
That's exactly right. That's what my buddy did, George Bodecker. He's the guy that developed Crocs, the shoes. He also was the guy that built Quiznos. And so he decided, okay, so what we're going to do our first sandwich, and then we're going to chop it up, and we're going to go outside, and we're going to give free samples of the sandwich. That's kind of our market research that tells us what we need to do to build a better sandwich, but it also is a way of letting people know who we are and what it is that we're providing. So it was almost a benefit of two things simultaneously. So again, that's where we have real-time feedback that's necessary to be able to refine. And you must do that and not try to be too perfect, getting the perfect product right up, because what we think it is may not be it at all. We may have already achieved it and not even know that, and built into it a time delay by trying to make it better when people already think that it's the best that it could be.
It's so funny. I've watched so many people in life just get so emotionally invested in like that cookie, right? And if the goal is to be the best cookie person in Los Angeles, that cookie might never ever be sold.
Totally.
Right? Yeah, and so working along that arc and developing and being able to not be so invested in the thing so you can get data back. I think that's also a framework that's it's just a real kind of new way of looking for most people who just think that this cookie is going to be on Walmart's or Whole Foods shelves.
I think that's right, and there's kind of another myth to this in a certain sense, is that we feel that we're just going to be more ready if we wait longer. And the reality is that we won't. Let's just do the best that can with what we've got. Let's put it out there and let's get real-time blowback, because that's really the proof in the pudding of what we need to do for the next iteration to become better. And as soon as we get used to that, then we're able to gain more momentum to get to where we need to go faster with less time and less effort and less expense.
That's beautiful. So I could see this being applied to photography, to art, to business, obviously. And so you said you work with people on stage.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me. Can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I work with you too. I helped them prepare for a world tour. And so you'd say, well, I don't understand this. Chiropractor, artist, Olympian, working with you too, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah. Why are they calling you?
Yeah,
Right.
well, it's the same thing, because when we're talking about achievement, it's all the same thing. Maybe the details of it are different, but the reality of the process remains exactly the same. So to me, it doesn't matter. Business, stage, platinum records, Olympic gold medals, best cookie in town. To me, it's all the same thing. It's about a structure that history has revealed to us, especially to me, having been in the high performance field for almost 40 years. God, I hate to say it, but I competed on my first national championship that was 51 years ago. I can't believe that. So again, there are certain things that prove to be true. And so again, success is a universal phenomena that has a structure that everybody learns, and the discipline is secondary to that.
So you too had the foresight to call a guy like you and say, hey, we need help, because what we want to do better in our performances, we want to cut the inertia. Like, how does one get to the place where they realize they need to shift their framework to ask for help because whatever they're doing isn't working right?
Well, sometimes people look at resistance through the eyes of another myth. If it isn't hard, then it's not worth pursuing, which is another myth. What that really means is that you don't have the readiness to be able to carry things through as smoothly as possible. That's usually like a lack of preparation. So, to take friction out of the system, again, just requires planning. It involves personnel and team and compatibility. It involves a certain level of pacing to resist urgency. It requires conserving energy and resources. And so those are really all the things that really need to be there. Yeah. And unfortunately, most people believe the human nature myths, and they have to repeat them enough time to realize that they don't work. And what they think that it is that hasn't delivered in the past is not going to deliver in the future. So maybe we need to look at a new way of doing things. And unfortunately, that's the way most people are set up. They believe that they're the exception to the rule, and they know that other people have perhaps failed for a certain reason, but it doesn't apply to them, unfortunately.
Look at lottery winners and how so many people just line up and put their money in
it. And I think another thing too is, like, if you look at shows like ESPN, et cetera, they set us up for that false belief, because they make us think that, look at the talent that this guy has, isn't he just amazing? They don't talk about hard work. They don't talk about not sleeping and doing things. They don't talk about all the things that really happen behind the scenes to make things happen. So again, there's a certain reality here that isn't portrayed, in the myth of the story, unfortunately.
It's funny, because that's how TV traditionally has worked, is tell them what they want to hear, show them sex, drugs, and rock and roll and violence. And people don't want to, they want to move away from the harsh realities of life, which incorporate work and all the things that actually make people become the stars that you're watching on TV. Do you think that's intentional, or is it just that, like, it's just kind of the shadow of our subconscious that just doesn't want to look or reflect or turn back on ourselves?
I just think that, again, we're ignoring reality. Because here's the reality, is that we have a human nature, and we have more confidence in our ability to fail than we do in our ability to succeed. We do that. When I was a graduate student at the University of Southern California, I'd show up to take a test, and everybody would be huddled around the door quizzing each other, and I realized this is ridiculous. As an Olympian, the closer it gets to competing, the more you want to pull back and build your reserves to be able to put the transcendent performance when it has to go right. And I realized that they were investing 100% of their confidence in the 5% that they didn't know. So traditionally, at the end of the test, everybody's erasing and changing all the right answers to wrong answers. which was, again, like predictable. So I think our culture reinforces our apprehension and our frail confidence in ourselves. And that's only because we don't and have not learned a method that has proven itself to be true, and when followed, allows us to consistently achieve our champion goals. I'm not talking about average goals. I'm not talking about gutsy goals. I'm talking about champion goals that we can all have. And here's the secret. That's having the readiness for the pivotal moments, those moments that'll make or break our career or life every year, and avoid preventable problems without losing time or momentum. That's the secret.
So having a cushion of vitality and energy and reserve and sanity, really, is a great place to start.
Yes, but you can only have that if you look at the plan and the plan makes sense to you and it's been vetted, and you can put your confidence in the plan and your readiness to execute it. Because without having a plan that you can tangibly look at and touch and feel and taste, and you have an emotional attachment and an alignment with it, because you know you can do it, because it's been dissected and presented in such a way that it's incontrovertible, that if you do this, you're going to succeed. There has to be that linkage. That's the only way that you can have the real confidence that really makes a difference.
Wow. I think that 80% of America could learn a lot from just that piece, because I meet very few people who make plans in their lives, who have an actionable kind of arc along what it is that they're doing. And it's like every single day, it's like they're more worried about the bullets coming in and defending against chaos than they are in terms of like emanating and having a plan. Well,
that's a very interesting thing, because if you go back and you look at the human nature side that believes that we have to be perfect to be worthy of a perfect performance. I helped the guy win a gold medal in the London Olympics. I said, the reason why you're mentally unraveling right now, and he was 2.5 weeks before the Olympic final, and they brought me in to talk with him, and I said, well, here's the problem. You're ready to win tonight if you had to jump, because you're physically ready. You're leading the world championship. What else do you need to know? I said, the reason why you're mentally spiraling down right now is that you and all your advisors, and you got the best of everybody on your team, you guys all think that to be able to win the gold medal, you need to put in the perfect jump, and you need to find all the details that are necessary for you to put in the perfect jump. And here's the joke, is that there's always going to be one more detail in your mind that you're not going to find, that you're going to believe is required to be able to win the gold medal. You got to get away from that. So this is the reality. This is how you invest in the 2% to gain access to the 98%. It's the 1 or 2% that has to go right. And the people that I work with, and the Champion Blueprint, which is my program, it's all about what history tells us about the 1 to 2% that's got to go right to be able to advance and carry our momentum towards goal achievement. 1 or 2 things. Don't look at all the things that could go wrong. It's never delivered.
What makes you awesome? What's put you in first place anyways? You're the front runner, worried about tripping on your shoelaces.
That's exactly right. So again, these are lessons that we all know because we've all experienced them. But it's hard to invest confidence in them because they're so contrarian, and it's certainly not what the media is talking about. It's not what the other programs are talking about, but yet we know them to be true because we've experienced it.
Love it. I'm so glad that you're doing the work that you're doing and crossing over and just helping regular folks with this framework.
My passion.
Yeah, it's really great to democratize that, because it seems like it's such like an elite vault of stuff that only the creme de la creme athletes and whatever can get, and you've really democratized it, so that's cool.
Well, I appreciate that. I actually had a revelation a couple years ago. It's like, okay, I fly around in people's private jets and do all this stuff, and yeah, that's nice, it's fun, it's great. Help people win gold medals and make millions and get to the next thought leadership level. Yeah, it's great, but I think about the millions of people out there that have massive intention. They have massive talent and will and capability. They're coachable. They want it. They're good people. They deserve to win. But they don't have the structure that's necessary to make the action steps stick, to gain traction and move forward. So I said, I got to figure this out. So I've had all this massive success over the last 30, going on 40 years with people. I said, I got to figure this out. So I actually sat down in a restaurant one night. I pulled out a napkin and a pen, and I said, if I can draw what this looks like, then I can create a model that I can share with everybody so that they can follow it through a self-study course if they don't have access to me. So I drew a picture of what this looked like, and they actually were shutting the lights off, and the stools are going on, mops are out, and the stools are going on top of the tables. And I finally got it, is that universally, every champion that I work with, business, sports, stage, it didn't matter. There were 8 steps that they went through to develop the capacity to be able to consistently achieve their goals. And I realized that this was universal, and there were no exemptions, there were no free passes with this, that it applied to everybody. And so that became the Champion's Blueprint. And I realized that within those 8 steps, there are 4 different elements that, when followed, allowed a person to consistently create the most number of successes and the highest magnitude of them. And that first step was to identify, well, what step am I in? Because if we can identify which of the 8 steps we're in, then history tells us what's coming, so we're not taken by surprise. Number 2, within each of the steps, there were also patterns or circumstances that, if left to play themselves out, would stall a life predictably, making goal achievement impossible. I also saw that within each of the steps, there was a principle that could be applied to the pattern to neutralize the pattern that would take us out of the game, that would allow us to carry momentum forward towards goal achievement. And then the 4th thing, since the 8 steps were revealed to me through history to be in sequence, if we knew the step we were in, we knew the step that we would eventually get to. We already would know what's coming, so we could prepare for it. If it was a pothole that would take us out of the game, we walk around it. If it were a brass ring, we'd be in a position to seize it because we were ready for it and we prepared for it and we expected it. And so that was the revelation, and that's where the Champion Blueprint program is now being created, so that people that don't have access to me, they can become their own champions by following the protocols that are taught, which are exactly the same thing that I've done to help people win gold medals, make millions of dollars, and move to the next level.
Fantastic. So when the program's available, and I've been nudging them to get it going as fast as possible here. When it's available, we'll share a link with you so that you can check it out and share it with the world. And I'm just happy you're out and just kind of sharing the goodness now and kind of hanging out and talking about this stuff, because a lot of these people don't. It's just, it's like the ancient Chinese secret. Everyone's got their guy in the corner. They don't talk about this stuff because it's like competitive trade secrets. And you're the guy that's an insider who's actually kind of exposing it and letting people who need to know it actually have access to it.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that. And the motivation, it all goes back to my dad. My dad was a genius, legitimately, and now he's known for someone that could that didn't, rather than someone that couldn't did. And again, he was missing some key things. He did not have a blueprint that told him what to do in critical situations. His will and his talent, his technique, and his technology didn't save him. They're not going to save any of us, ultimately, at the end of the day. And he didn't have a corner man that kind of was the voice in his ear that told him turn right, turn left at critical times, and that's what made the difference. And I'm gonna rampage, because there's only one of you, there's only one of me, and there's only one of everybody in this creation, and there's 7 billion people on this planet right now. And I just feel that without this model and without this method to make the action steps stick and gain traction to move forward, it's not possible to live the life that we're capable of. It's not possible to live the lifestyle that we want. It's not possible to create the income that we deserve. It's not possible to make the contribution that we want. It's not possible to leave a legacy that's our personal case study that shows other people what we do with our time and talents, and shows them how we did it, so that they can learn from that and they can become their own champions. I just don't accept that, and that's what my life is dedicated to.
Well, I look forward to the day where what you're teaching is built into, whether it's elementary or junior high level education throughout the country, so that people have this framework growing up. Because that's also part of it, right? It's like we just don't understand how to be successful, and we're following old models. I mean, look, when I was growing up, it was be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer. That's all you got. Right now, look, the world is kind of blown up, and people are doing weird things, and you see people making $1 billion for some random idea on the internet, and it's all just so confusing. But those people also have a framework. There's a reason why people are successful.
Yeah, it's like a metronome, and it's like there are no accidents at this level. They're purely the outcome of technologies and systems consistently applied, and there are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts. The only thing that's true and proven itself to be true is a system where all the parts are kind of working together in harmony that creates the exponential output, where the gold medals are won, where the spectacular personal achievements are done, where the cookie's produced, where the kid draws a thing in kindergarten. I mean, those are the expressions, the output of this systems approach to this. And in my view, without the system, it's impossible to push through just by sheer will or talent alone.
Yeah, well, amen. Thank you. You
My
are
pleasure.
like the correcting principle to this stuff happening out there in the industry, and it's just such a breath of fresh air. Yeah, it's a real breath of fresh air talking to someone who's talking sense. So thank you for being here.
Such a pleasure.
Awesome.
Thanks, Pedram.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Hey, I hope you liked it. Theurbanmonk.com is the URL. Let me know what you think. Also, iTunes, please subscribe. YouTube, please subscribe. And yeah, start applying some of the wisdom that you're getting here, because guys like Jeff Spencer, they are elite and they work with the elite people. And my goal here is to bring some of these elite badasses and share them with you so that you can start making some of these upgrades in your life. And man, it's just stepping into our potential is a pretty cool thing. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next show.